Chapter 2 of The Magic of Oz by L. Frank Baum. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2 The Hawk. Even a hawk has to fly high in order to cross the deadly desert, from which poisonous fumes are constantly rising. Kiki Aru felt sick and faint by the time he reached good land again, for he could not quite escape the effects of the poisons. But the fresh air soon restored him, and he alighted in a broad tableland which is called Highland. Just beyond it is a valley known as Lowland, and these two countries are ruled by the gingerbread man, John Doe, with Chick the Cherub as his prime minister. The hawk merely stopped here long enough to rest. Then he flew north and passed over a fine country called Merryland, which is ruled by a lovely wax doll. Then, following the curve of the desert, he turned north and settled on a treetop in the kingdom of Noland. Kiki was tired by this time, and the sun was now setting, so he decided to remain here till morning. From his treetop he could see a house nearby, which looked very comfortable. A man was milking a cow in the yard, and a pleasant-faced woman came to the door and called him to supper. That made Kiki wonder what sort of food hawks ate. He felt hungry, but didn't know what to eat or where to get it. Also, he thought a bed would be more comfortable than a treetop for sleeping, so he hopped to the ground and said, "I want to become Kiki Aru again. Piers a Quixel." Instantly he had resumed his natural shape, and going to the house he knocked upon the door and asked for some supper. "Who are you?" asked the man of the house. "A stranger from the land of Oz," replied Kiki Aru. "Then you are welcome," said the man. Kiki was given a good supper and a good bed, and he behaved very well, although he refused to answer all the questions the good people of Noland asked him. Having escaped from his home and found a way to see the world, the young man was no longer unhappy, and so he was no longer cross and disagreeable. The people thought him a very respectable person and gave him breakfast next morning, after which he started on his way feeling very contented. Having walked for an hour or two through the pretty country that is ruled by King Bud, Kiki Aru decided he would travel faster and see more as a bird, so he transformed himself into a white dove and visited the great city of Noli, and saw the king's palace and gardens and many other places of interest. Then he flew westward into the kingdom of Ix, and after a day in Queen Zizik's country went on westward into the land of Ev. Every place he visited he thought was much more pleasant than the saucer country of the Hyups, and he decided that when he reached the finest country of all, he would settle there and enjoy his future life to the utmost. In the land of Ev he resumed his own shape again, for the cities and villages were close together, and he could easily go on foot from one to another of them. Toward evening he came to a good inn and asked the innkeeper if he could have food and lodging. "You can if you have the money to pay," said the man. "Otherwise you must go elsewhere." This surprised Kiki, for in the land of Oz they do not use money at all, everyone being allowed to take what he wishes without price. He had no money, therefore, and so he turned away to seek hospitality elsewhere. Looking through an open window into one of the rooms of the inn, as he passed along, he saw an old man counting on a table a big heap of gold pieces, which Kiki thought to be money. One of these would buy him supper and a bed, he reflected, so he transformed himself into a magpie, and flying through the open window, caught up one of the gold pieces in his beak and flew out again before the old man could interfere. Indeed, the old man who was robbed was quite helpless, for he dared not leave his pile of gold to chase the magpie, and before he could place the gold in a sack in his pocket, the robber bird was out of sight, and to seek it would be folly. Kiki Aru flew to a group of trees and, dropping the gold piece to the ground, resumed his proper shape, and then picked up the money and put it in his pocket. "You'll be sorry for this!" exclaimed a small voice just over his head. Kiki looked up and saw that a sparrow, perched upon a branch, was watching him. "Sorry for what?" he demanded. "Oh, I saw the whole thing," asserted the sparrow. "I saw you look in the window at the gold, and then make yourself into a magpie and rob the poor man, and then I saw you fly here and make the bird into your former shape. That's magic, and magic is wicked and unlawful, and you stole money, and that's a still greater crime. You'll be sorry some day." "I don't care," replied Kiki Aru, scowling. "Aren't you afraid to be wicked?" asked the sparrow. "No, I didn't know I was being wicked," said Kiki. "But if I was, I'm glad of it. I hate good people. I've always wanted to be wicked, but I didn't know how." "Ha ha ha!" laughed someone behind him in a big voice. "That's the proper spirit, my lad. I'm glad I've met you. Shake hands." The sparrow gave a frightened squeak and flew away. End of chapter 2.